Hi, everyone. Okay, we're recording. Hello, angels. I'm tuning in today to talk about sex magic. As per usual, I wanted to talk about how to reach states of trance while engaging in masturbation. So, this is something that I mentioned in the reading that I did for October, the sex magic card reading. And we talked about kind of like a thing that you can do in order to access parts of your subconscious or the spirit realm or infinite wisdom, which sounds like so casual, like, oh, if you just want to like access infinite wisdom. One of the things that you can do is reach a trance state of pleasure. And some of you might be familiar with trance states from things like mantra meditation or even regular meditation. Some people are familiar with trance states from the kink world, like subspace would be a bit of an example of kind of releasing a sense of ego, releasing a sense of identity, and falling into a sense of pure sensation and a pure experience. So if you've ever experienced like really deep, powerful mantra meditation or subspace, then you might have a nice jumping off point for how to access that kind of realm when you're in a state of masturbation. So reaching a trance state can look different for different people depending on kind of what you feel. There's really no external way to know if you're in a trance state or not, but generally the sense of self that you feel in your everyday life, like the really physical self that's here, tends to fall away. And there's also an aspect of it that is in relation to your movement. So if you find yourself moving in a rhythmic pattern, which is why sometimes mantras will get us into trance states, being in rhythm, that's another Hermetic principle, is rhythm. So the Hermetic principle of rhythm is a cosmic law that sort of keeps matter in this realm doing what it does. And it keeps energy in the other realms doing what it does. And it's a huge part of how we stay in cooperation as humans and entities. And so when we're able to access rhythm, either with our body or with our voice or with our pleasure, then we are tuning in to the beat of the cosmic drum. And don't worry about your rhythm. Whatever your rhythm that's being expressed is, it's a way for you to communicate kind of astrally. You're sort of astrally communicating. I don't know if astral is the right word, but the signature of your communication is different. And expression, like self-expression, expressing yourself, is another way to communicate in this way. That's kind of a higher level of communication that doesn't necessarily have a basis in whether or not you're being understood or whether or not you're being coherent, but a sense of expression with no observation and no obligation. Oh, the wind is blowing so sweetly. And there's trees right out there, so I can't look away. Sorry. Maybe they like what we're doing here. So I'll talk about the way that I reach trance states with pleasure. Normally, I masturbate pretty normally. Like I will fantasize about things that turn me on and, start touching myself. And then once I feel kind of aroused, like my whole body is really in on the pleasure with me, then I might stop my traditional masturbation and start energetically masturbating, where I'm listening to a guided body scan meditation and inviting pleasure to all of the places over my body. Another way that I'm able to reach a peak state of trance is when I am in sexual experiences with other people, where I have the opportunity to completely submit to pleasure happening to me. And that would be an example of how kind of these sexual practices that we have socially that we are really excited about and really get engaged with, like things that we consider our kinks or something that we're really into, normally that is a cosmic arrow that is pointing to ways that we can access magic. Sex and love are magical things, and one of the many ways that we feel magic on earth is through exercising those muscles, not just in our physical body, but in our spiritual body. And so if I'm alone, I might put on some music that gets me going, and I might create situations where I'm really aroused and empowered. And there's so many fun nature things going on around me right now. It's nice. Are you aroused, trees? Because I'm talking about this. And in the same way, if you've ever meditated before, if you've ever done mindfulness meditation, this is kind of how mindfulness meditation works, is you try to become mindful by, while you're in your meditation, you resume your focus back to your breath. So you'll get kind of distracted with your brain, and then you'll bring your attention back to your breath. And then you focus on your breath, and then you get distracted, and then you come back to your breath. So that's kind of like the mindfulness meditation template. And what you can do is, in a state of masturbation, if you're extending your time to where the goal necessarily isn't climax, but instead to reach a trance state, which is more about elevating your pleasure so much that your senses are, and all of your senses are enrolled in your pleasure. And you will feel kind of a shift in your mind that happens when you sort of exit this thought pattern that exists, and you enter instead a kind of ethereal, not necessarily rigid way of thinking that invites a lot of divinity into it and invites other ways that you can experience the world into your perception. So this state can really open up your perception. And it works differently for everyone. If you want to try to enter a trance state without masturbation, some of us have some hangups around touching ourselves. So you can also try mantra meditation and then introduce your masturbation later. So you can try to, you can create a mantra for yourself, or you can look some up online, and then you repeat the mantra over and over and over again until you sort of like lose yourself. And then later, when you get kind of good at that and that starts to feel safer for you, then you might be able to introduce pleasure, if that's kind of your relationship with it. And then, as always, if these things are not physically accessible to you to do with your body, you can always do this in your imagination. Your imagination version of yourself is acting in the spirit world all the time, and is also able to have a lot of influence on this plane as well. So if you want to imagine yourself doing those things, then it has a powerful impact if those types of pleasure are not accessible to you. And if they are accessible to you and you want to practice or motivate yourself, start imagining yourself doing it, and start imagining some of the side effects that might occur, and start imagining how you would feel before, during, and after. And by imagining it, you are communicating with your future self to see what's up. And if you imagine doing it and it doesn't feel good, and it still feels kind of scary and not super yummy, then you actually don't have to do it ever. That's one of the cool things about everything. But particularly when it comes to magic and connecting with the spirit world, not only are you never obligated to do any of those things, but there are also so many different channels to get there. And this pleasure and sexuality is just one way to access an energy that is accessible anytime. You know what I mean? Since I have been able to practice, through pleasure, because that's how I first experienced true embodiment. So my relationship with sex and pleasure is really attached to my relationship with embodiment and really sentimental. And so then I started to move toward using the same meditations that I was using in pleasure as I was practicing and creating a practice for my sex magic. I was able to bring those things into the real vanilla world and integrate them, fully, because this was kind of my avenue. So my desire for anyone listening who is here to hear the message of, if they're here to like fulfill their curiosity around how to access their pleasure or how to access spirit through pleasure, my desire is for the process of imagining yourself doing it to also be the process of you discovering yourself and discovering how you feel about things. If something is a no for you, or if the trances aren't working, or if you become distracted, or you don't have time for it, or you don't feel like you deserve pleasure, if those things are kind of dragging you down, that's perfectly valid and that's okay, but your imagination is yours. That is your space. So consider, as you are in these states of meditation and masturbation, really dropping in, not just to your sense of fantasy, like how we fantasize about things while we touch ourselves sometimes, but also about your sense of imagination in the magical sense, and your power and your intention and your embodiment. And those things do not come overnight, and they do not happen automatically. They do happen with practice. And the more you lean on yourself for wisdom and less on how other people treat you or what other people teach you, the more you will learn, especially in these spaces where the tool is your body, your mind, and your spirit. That's your tool. So all of these messages have to become integrated through those things. And it's going to look different for everyone. It's like a fingerprint or an iris. It's just for you. So I'm excited for your journey. Let me know if you try some trances. I have a workshop coming up, Magical Masturbation. So if you want to learn about stuff like this or you have any questions, then check the link in the bio and come attend the workshop. Mwah. I'm sending you lots of love.